So this is Love Sunday. Love is so often conditional that I wonder sometimes if we even know what unconditional love is like. We say, yes, we'll help you, no problem. But only if you can prove your neediness. Yes, come on in, there's room for you, but only if you're clean and sober, only if you blend in with us, or only if you speak without an accent from your mother tongue, or only if you do the jobs that no one else wants. Yes, we will do a new thing as soon as you can prove that it works. But this isn't the kind of love that we hear the prophets telling us of, or that we hear Mary professing in her song of praise, or that we know God is calling us over and over to embrace. That kind of love is unconditional. And loving unconditionally is hard. It can be risky and often fraught with missteps. But the rewards, when we can actually bring ourselves to love unconditionally, the rewards, they might not be immediate. In fact, we may never fully realize them. But to the person or persons who have received that unconditional love, well, it's nothing short of transformational. Think about Mary. Today we heard her song of praise read from the scriptures. A song so compelling that even if you can't see the singer or hear all the words very clearly, there's something about it that draws you towards it. But did God choose Mary because she was already perfect? I don't think so. I think that all too often in our pageants and nativity scenes, in our imagery and in our imaginations, we depict Mary as a meek, mild, and already virtuous person who had almost the misfortune of being picked by God to have a child out of wedlock, as if this unplanned pregnancy was the only thing that outcast this otherwise respectful and obedient woman. We have an unspoken perception that God chose Mary because she was already good. Yet we know that God uses unlikely people and unlikely places. The good news comes first to people that smell like sheep, for goodness sakes. And God comes to earth to dwell among us in the form of a child, in a time where children had no real value until they could live long enough to work and bear more children. God's kingdom is a place of love, justice, peace, and grace, brought to the world on the back of a donkey and laid in a manger, not through the might of any army. So do we really think that God chose Mary because she was already good? Play with me some what-ifs in your imagination for a moment, if you would. What if Mary was a prostitute, or already pregnant, or what if she was an addict or homeless? What if Mary had lost everything and was bankrupt or divorced, or even worse, had used her God-given gifts to take advantage of others? Or what if Mary was simply invisible to the world around her? Young, unmarried, childless, one who was perceived as possessing absolutely nothing worthwhile contributing to society. Now, how do we hear Mary's response to the angel Gabriel? Now, how do we hear Mary's song of praise and cries for justice? Now, how do we hear the love that God is calling each of us to embody like Mary did? For to embody the holy like Mary is to embody a love that does not dismiss others. A love that is truly for everyone. A love that is unconditional. And as I think about this kind of love, my heart keeps getting drawn back to the words of Reverend Grace Matthew, who said, "If you find that there is no room at your table, check your love." Because love always finds a way to make room. If you find there is no room at your table, no room in your church, no room in your community, no room in your hearts, check your love. Friends, love finds a way to make room even in places and people that we deem unworthy. All too often, I see around us ways we have made our love conditional. Ways that we limit the room at our tables. And the hardest part is that most of the time I doubt we even realize that that's what we are doing. From sidelong glances at a neighbor who isn't following some unwritten rule, to admonishing people who choose to say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. Love isn't rolling our eyes or muttering under our breath at the idiosyncrasies of another. Love isn't assuming the worst when we're asked for help. Yet we all do these things. We all do them. This wariness, this mistrust, this fear comes from the world. And love comes from God. God is asking us to see beyond our lived experiences, to see beyond the limitations that societal stories have built around us, and to open ourselves to a whole new realm of possibility. To open ourselves to being able to imagine that the very one we would normally dismiss could be housing the holy child of God. So friends, as you go about this week before Christmas, I invite you to make time to notice things that you might have dismissed before. Maybe it's the neighbor that you never see, or the wonder in a scenery that is on a drive so familiar you no longer notice it. Or perhaps the quiet dedication of a worker in a store that you frequent. Open your hearts and truly take notice of every single thing that is right before you. View it through God's eyes, our God who notices that which appears invisible, our God who sees holy in unlikely people and places, our God who loves unconditionally. Open your hearts and see the far-fetched potential of God's kingdom unfolding right before your eyes. For every single day, there is a multitude of ways to reach out and share God's love. If only we choose, like Mary, to be bold and brave and trusting in God enough to do it. Open your hearts and believe that the impossible is possible with God. And then breathe deep and know that, like Mary, you are God's chosen. Breathe deep and know that the Holy One dwells within you. And may it show in all that you say and do.